A hit for 9 seasons in the 70s and 80s, Little House on the Prairie has also enchanted, entertained, and reassured successive generations after that, as they gather for a fan festival this weekend.
Little House on the Prairie was one of television's most cherished family dramas, running for 9 seasons and capturing hearts with its wholesome pioneer spirit. But behind the nostalgia lies a surprising truth. A single scene is widely credited with abruptly ending the series, turning a beloved classic into a sudden farewell. What could have been so powerful that it altered the course of one of the most popular shows of the 1970s and 1980s? Was it creative differences, changing audience tastes, or something else entirely? The controversial scene emerges. By the time Little House on the Prairie approached its final seasons, the show had built a reputation for heartfelt storytelling and family values. Yet, nestled within its wholesome framework, was a moment that unsettled many viewers and industry insiders alike. This scene, unexpected in both tone and content, emerged during one of the show's later episodes and instantly became a lightning rod for controversy. The exact nature of the scene was unlike anything audiences had come to expect from the gentle, nostalgic world of Walnut Grove. Its impact went beyond mere surprise. It challenged the very heart of what the series represented. Although the details of the scene were not immediately publicized far and wide, those who watched recognized a sharp departure from the usual formula. It involved a storyline and visual elements that some found jarring for a family show, introducing themes and implications that bordered on taboo for primetime television in the early 1980s. This wasn't a typical plot twist or character development. It struck a nerve because it clashed with the values the audience had long associated with the series. This created a ripple of discomfort that was hard for networks and producers to ignore. The uproar was magnified because the scene arrived at a time when Little House's ratings had started to waver. Fans and critics alike were weighing in, but the network executives faced pressures from multiple directions: advertisers scrutinizing brand associations, audiences voicing opinions, and internal creative forces debating the show's direction. Though the show had survived many challenges, this scene felt like a tipping point, threatening to undo years of dedicated storytelling. Yet, the full extent of its influence was not immediately clear, leaving many wondering if it was merely a misstep or something far more consequential. Speculation swirled about why this moment caused such an uproar. Was it the emotional intensity, the subjects touched upon, or perhaps the way it was staged visually and narratively? Industry insiders whispered that this scene broke an unspoken boundary for family television, one that Little House had carefully avoided until then. The tension grew not just among viewers, but behind closed doors, as stakeholders began assessing how to respond to the backlash. The episode's airing marked a turning point, setting a chain reaction that would eventually seal the show's fate. Though controversy on television was not unheard of, the reaction to this scene felt unusually fierce, given the show's legacy. As the public conversations grew louder, the scene took on a life of its own, burdened with symbolic meaning beyond the episode itself. It became a flashpoint, representing a larger clash between evolving storytelling ambitions and the expectations of conservative audiences still dominant in primetime slots. Even those loyal to Little House found themselves divided, grappling with whether to defend the show's new risks or mourn its departure from familiar comforts. At the heart of this stir was the realization that Little House on the Prairie was no longer just a simple family drama. It had crossed into a territory that tested social norms and pushed narrative boundaries. Though the scene was but a fragment of the overall series, it crystallized a growing tension between tradition and change. The producers had tried to keep the show relevant in a shifting television landscape, But this moment may have gone too far for those controlling its future. The scene's repercussions revealed how precarious the balance was for long-running programs during times of cultural transition. Little House on the Prairie had long been a staple of American television. But the scene's shockwaves forced a re-evaluation of what audiences were willing to accept and what networks could justify airing. Little House's place on TV. To truly grasp the impact of that controversial scene, it helps to understand the place Little House on the Prairie held in American culture and television history. Premiering in 1974, the series quickly became a symbol of wholesome family entertainment, showcasing themes of resilience, community, and moral integrity. Based on Laura Ingalls Wilder's books, the show portrayed life on the 19th century frontier with warmth and nostalgia, offering viewers a comforting escape from contemporary social complexities. Its success lay in its ability to blend historical storytelling with relatable family dynamics. Throughout its 9 seasons, the program maintained a strong, devoted fan base, consistently drawing millions of viewers. It became known for stories that emphasized kindness, perseverance, and the simple pleasures of pioneer life. The core cast, including Michael Landon, Melissa Gilbert, and Karen Grassel, became household names, embodying characters that audiences admired and trusted. The show's blend of drama and gentle humor made it a fixture on Sunday evenings, often watched by multiple generations gathered together. The show Little House used its gentle approach to resolve social issues because it wanted to handle poverty and disability and prejudice in a positive way. The show demonstrated to viewers that people can maintain hope during tough times because they receive help from their social networks. The show maintained a family-friendly image, which received recognition because it stayed away from both extreme visual material and contentious topics. The show broke its promise to viewers who wanted to watch the show for peaceful content, because it showed the violent scene which made people uncomfortable. The cultural impact of Little House extended beyond its ratings. The show presented American pioneer history and values to audiences during an era when television functioned as both entertainment and ethical instruction. The show shaped how the audience understood family dynamics and gender roles and rural community life during that period. The show developed a dedicated fan base, which sustained its popularity through merchandise and spin-off shows and reruns for many years. The show existed as more than an entertainment program because it provided people with a collective cultural moment. The television industry started to experience changes when the 1980s reached its midpoint. The entertainment industry introduced new programming styles which attracted younger audiences, while traditional family shows had to adapt to these changes. The Little House show experienced rating declines because its viewers started to choose shows which showed current social problems. The show needed to modernize its content because people who remembered the show started to lose interest. The creative team had to balance between showing traditional stories and developing new storytelling methods which required greater artistic risk. The rift between cherished tradition and the need for renewal was wider than many had realized. Networks and censorship in the early 1980s. The early 1980s were a period of transformation and cautious conservatism within network television, shaping the environment in which Little House on the Prairie broadcast its final seasons. During this era, networks faced mounting pressure from advocacy groups, advertisers, and politically active segments of the audience concerned about preserving family values. Although television had begun to test boundaries in the 1970s, the pendulum was swinging toward more vigilant monitoring of content, particularly during prime-time hours. Network executives walked a tightrope between creative risk and preserving broad appeal. Censorship was often a subtle, behind-the-scenes force that guided programming decisions. Networks maintained strict standards to avoid offending viewers or attracting negative publicity. Controversial topics or scenes that seemed to challenge prevailing social norms risked delay, editing, or outright rejection. The goal was to keep shows safe for a general audience, reinforcing familiar moral frameworks, while steering clear of hot-button issues that might alienate sponsors or attract regulatory scrutiny. Little House on the Prairie occupied a unique space within this landscape. Its reputation as a family series committed to uplifting themes meant that it was expected to conform to these standards more strictly than edgier shows. The network, NBC, was particularly sensitive to feedback from its demographic, knowing that upsetting core viewers could lead to swift backlash. This context helps explain why the controversial scene attracted such significant attention. The moment not only challenged narrative conventions, but also appeared to jeopardize the network's cautious approach. The testing process between test screenings and advertiser consultations worked as an informal system which evaluated audience reactions before episodes aired. The programmers used their power to pressure producers into changing or removing content, which caused concern or showed deviation from standard practices. The political atmosphere during that period became more sensitive because of conservative moral movements, which affected the public perception of sensitive matters. The networks worried that their shows, which contained controversial themes, would result in boycotts or destruction of vital business relationships. The 1980s introduced new cable channels and different ways people watch television, which forced traditional networks to compete with these changes. Broadcast networks maintained their preference for safe material because they wanted to keep their broad audience base despite viewers demanding more complex storytelling. The networks resisted upcoming changes while audience tastes were developing, which created a delicate balance for shows that required specific content to keep their audience. The situation became critical for Little House because the show had created an image which became part of its established identity. With these complex forces at play around the controversial scene, the reaction of fans and critics became yet another crucial piece of the story. Fan and critical reactions. When the controversial scene aired, reactions from viewers and critics were swift and deeply divided. Loyal fans, many of whom had grown up watching Little House on the Prairie with their families, expressed shock and disappointment. Letters poured into the network and fan clubs, with some viewers accusing the show of betraying its wholesome roots. For many, the scene felt like an intrusion of harsh reality into the gentle, comforting world of Walnut Grove, unsettling the safe space they had come to cherish. Critics, on the other hand, were split between praising the series for daring to explore more challenging material and condemning it for straying too far from its established tone. Some reviewers recognized the attempt at storytelling evolution as bold, noting that television was beginning to grapple with more complex social issues across genres. Others, however, saw the scene as a misguided effort that disrupted the series' emotional continuity and alienated its core audience. This critical ambivalence added another layer of complexity to the show's predicament. Audience ratings immediately reflected the tension. While the episode garnered curiosity-driven viewership spikes, subsequent episodes saw notable drops as some longtime fans chose to disengage. The controversy was discussed in popular media outlets, fueling debates about the appropriateness of such content on family television. Talk shows and magazines dissected the scene's meaning and impact, revealing just how invested the public was in the show's future. For a series that had thrived on stability, this turbulence was deeply unsettling. Moreover, fan reactions extended beyond passive complaints. Some organized informal campaigns urging NBC to return Little House to its earlier tone. emphasizing the importance of preserving the show's legacy. These efforts highlighted how the series had become more than entertainment. It was a touchstone for viewers' values and memories. Conversely, there were also voices within the fan community who supported the show's willingness to engage with heavier subjects, appreciating the realism behind the narrative shift. This divide exposed a fracture in the audience that did not exist before. The American cultural tensions of the early 1980s needed their complete social impact to show through the arguments about the specific scene. The period experienced fundamental value disputes because society began to develop its new social understanding. Television needed to determine its social role because people showed two separate cultural trends. The Little House scene, which created public debate, became a small version of the fight between two groups. The medium developed through its formative years, which required it to choose between delivering audience comfort and revealing difficult reality. The public acknowledgement of their work created personal and professional difficulties for the creators. The team faced backlash from both the audience and their colleagues, who doubted their decisions. Some argued the scene was necessary to keep the show relevant, while others felt it was an unnecessary gamble. The team faced major tensions because they understood their creative choices would affect more than just the story elements. The directors who needed to control the series showed visible signs of conflict between them. The network needed to handle three competing priorities, which included advertiser requirements and viewer expectations, and its own operational plans. The show faced financial danger because sponsors who avoided risk showed they would stop supporting the project. NBC executives needed to decide about the creative risks, which carried financial and reputational dangers. The controversial scene experienced intense examination because multiple sources brought deep scrutiny to it. The environment created through these two factors produced a tense atmosphere, which required people to proceed with caution. The uproar over the scene also magnified existing pressures within the production team, leading to tensions that would further complicate Little House's final chapter. Behind-the-scenes tensions. While audiences debated the scene, tensions behind the scenes had been simmering for some time and were now pushed into the spotlight. The show's longtime leader, Michael Landon, served variously as actor, writer, and director, which gave him significant creative influence. Although committed to maintaining the series' heart, Landon and his team recognized the need to evolve the storytelling, which sometimes led to disagreements over tone and content. As the series entered its final seasons, these creative clashes grew more pronounced. Producers and writers were caught between the traditional vision of the show and the desire to address more modern and challenging themes. Some favored pushing boundaries to keep the series fresh and relevant, while others urged caution to avoid alienating loyal viewers. These differing priorities created a strained environment where collaboration was sometimes difficult. In particular, debates over that controversial scene revealed deep divisions about how far was too far in depicting mature topics within the family drama framework. Cast members also felt the stress of these behind-the-scenes conflicts. Many had been with the series through its entire run and shared a strong attachment to its original spirit. Some reportedly expressed discomfort with changes they felt betrayed the show's essence, worrying about how audiences would react. Others viewed the evolving narrative as an opportunity to explore more complex character development. This split in sentiment influenced performance dynamics on set, adding to an already tense atmosphere. The pressures extended beyond creative disagreements. With ratings fluctuating, executives began applying more influence on production decisions, sometimes clashing with the creators over story directions and casting choices. These corporate interventions further complicated relationships among those responsible for the show's content. The growing interference signaled a loss of the autonomy that had characterized much of the series' earlier seasons. Such constraints intensified the sense that the show was at a crossroads. Compounding the difficulties, the controversial scene's fallout led to difficult conversations about accountability. Some within the team questioned whether the decision to include it had been short-sighted. Others defended it as a necessary risk in a changing industry landscape. The dialogue surrounding responsibility was fraught, with finger-pointing occasionally surfacing amid mounting frustration. This internal discord undermined unity at a time when the series most needed a cohesive vision. The strain was not only professional, but personal. The long hours and emotional investment required by the series created fatigue, making it harder to navigate disagreements productively. Anecdotes from cast and crew later described an atmosphere charged with anxiety and uncertainty. The show's identity crisis weighed heavily on everyone involved, contributing to a sense of impending ending even before official decisions were made. This internal tension became almost palpable. The process of contract negotiations, together with future commitment discussions, brought extra complications to the ongoing situation. The series had reached its conclusion, according to some cast members, who began exploring opportunities for new work. The producers faced increased difficulties because key players were at risk of becoming unavailable. The series required protection from his loyalty efforts while he worked to achieve his personal career objectives. The renewal process faced challenges because the ongoing controversy made it harder to evaluate his chances. The creative team experienced decision-making challenges because their process became more difficult. The team showed caution about creating new scripts because they wanted to avoid provoking any additional negative reactions. The episodes following the controversial scene developed through damage control efforts, which restricted their ability to create original content. The organization used a reactive approach which restricted their storytelling options while creating a negative impact on employee spirit. Artistic intent and audience expectations created a dynamic tension which became increasingly powerful. As pressures mounted within the production, the network's leadership faced hard decisions about the show's fate, setting the stage for the next chapter in this unfolding drama. Executive decisions and politics. In the wake of the controversy stirred by the pivotal scene, NBC executives found themselves navigating an increasingly complex web of concerns and pressures. Behind closed doors, discussions about Little House on the Prairie's future became heated and strategic. The network had to balance maintaining a loyal audience with protecting its reputation among advertisers and broader viewership. Decisions were no longer purely about storytelling, but about managing public relations, business interests, and the shifting cultural climate of early 1980s television. Network leadership grappled with how to respond to the backlash without alienating the show's core fan base, which remained passionate despite the division. Some executives argued firmly for scaling back the edgier content to restore the family-friendly tone that had made the show a staple. Others saw the controversy as a symptom of a changing audience and believed the series should evolve to remain relevant. This internal conflict reflected broader tensions in network television, where traditional programming faced pressure to modernize while maintaining commercial viability. Advertisers played a significant role in these deliberations. Many prominent sponsors, wary of controversy damaging their brands, pressed the network for assurances that Little House on the Prairie would return to safer narrative ground. For NBC, the risk of losing advertising revenue was tangible. The network had to weigh the financial consequences against creative freedom, understanding that the controversy had spotlighted the tightrope walk between innovation and tradition. Their ultimately cautious approach signaled hesitance about pushing boundaries amid growing scrutiny. political pressures added another dimension to the network's calculations. The early 1980s were marked by a conservative resurgence in American politics, emphasizing family values and cultural conservatism. Interest groups monitored television content closely and were willing to mobilize public opinion against perceived moral transgressions. NBC executives were acutely aware that further controversy could provoke boycotts or congressional attention, potentially jeopardizing the entire schedule's stability. The network's leadership walked carefully to avoid becoming the focal point of broader culture wars. The atmosphere of caution which existed during the production and advertising of the show led to critical choices which affected these two aspects. The network decided to postpone their marketing activities for the disputed season, while they had to decrease their marketing activities. The network requirements led to changes in the planned storylines because the show producers needed to conform to network standards. The network executives made decisions which restricted creative freedom and created growing anxiety among the show producers. The show developed through political and commercial pressures, which forced it to follow different paths than its original artistic direction. NBC executives engaged in a dispute about whether to extend the contract for Little House on the Prairie. The show had achieved previous success, but the present controversy created uncertainty about its ability to generate future profits and maintain its place in current primetime programming. The executives examined the ratings data together with focus group results to determine whether the show would recover its past success or become a business burden. The network maintained its indecision, which producers and cast members experienced as they awaited information about contract renewals and series continuation. Networks from other areas monitored the situation during this period. The period saw cable television grow because it expanded its programming options, which created opportunities for emerging networks to challenge established shows. The network showed caution about its programming decisions, which made people wonder whether Little House on the Prairie remained suitable for its prime time schedule. The network showed political and financial caution because it understood that any mistake would lead to program decline, which would create opportunities for competitors. The series faced external pressures, which added to its internal problems. Despite the network's efforts to manage the fallout, the immediate impact on Little House on the Prairie was unmistakable, affecting its viewership and renewal prospects in significant ways. Long-term impact on the show. The repercussions of the controversial scene rippled through the final seasons of Little House on the Prairie, affecting ratings, renewal negotiations, and the show's overall legacy. Immediately following the episode, audience engagement showed signs of strain. While curiosity brought some viewers in, subsequent installments saw fluctuating and generally declining ratings. The once consistent and broad fan base grew more fragmented as debates about the show's evolving tone played out on living rooms across America. This inconsistency in ratings presented a serious challenge for NBC. In television, steady viewership numbers are crucial not only for advertising revenues, but also for a show's perceived vitality. The disruption caused by the controversial scene made it difficult for the network to predict audience trends or confidently invest in future episodes. Ratings dips underscored that the controversy was more than a transient hiccup. It was reshaping the show's relationship with its audience. The network's confidence in the series' stability waned accordingly. Renewal discussions for subsequent seasons became complicated by this uncertainty. Though the series remained popular enough to merit consideration, the network was reluctant to commit fully amid mixed signals. Contract negotiations with cast and crew were tinged with apprehension, as all parties sensed the show's fate hung in the balance. The uncertainty placed additional pressure on creative decisions, further constraining the show's flexibility and momentum. In some respects, the aftermath accelerated changes within the show's production. Writers and producers attempted to navigate a delicate path, trying to regain alienated fans without repeating the missteps that had sparked controversy. Storylines reverted to more traditional themes, and risk-taking lessened significantly. Yet, the shadow of the pivotal scene lingered, coloring both public perception and industry confidence. The show struggled to recapture its earlier enthusiasm and cohesiveness. Beyond the immediate ratings and production challenges, the scene's impact also influenced the larger narrative arc of the series' conclusion. The final episodes carried a tone of closure, in part shaped by the network's desire to end on a note that reassured longtime fans. This sense of winding down was not simply a creative choice, but reflected strategic efforts to conclude a beloved but now tenuous franchise. The show's end felt less like a triumphant finale and more like a concession to circumstances. The network decided to end the series when it became clear that the new season would not receive a renewal because they wanted to avoid further disputes and decrease their financial losses. The decision disappointed many people because it showed how traditional television shows must adapt to new market conditions. The final episode of Little House on the Prairie emerged from business requirements and artistic choices that followed audience ratings and advertising needs and public opinion. Little House on the Prairie demonstrated that family dramas faced challenges when they tried to change their format while staying popular with viewers, because that era offered only limited options for television shows. The lessons learned from this episode would resonate not only with the series itself, but also with television's ongoing evolution in the decades that followed. Legacy and lessons learned. The controversial scene that contributed to the end of Little House on the Prairie left a lasting mark not only on the series itself, but on television storytelling as a whole. It demonstrated the fine line that family-oriented shows must walk when addressing mature themes. While innovation and relevance are essential for long-running programs, the episode highlighted how abruptly changing tone or content risks alienating core audiences. This tension remains a central challenge in television, especially for shows rooted in tradition. Little House on the Prairie's experience became a case study in the limits of creative risk on network television during an era of cultural conservatism. The scene's fallout revealed how external pressures, network executives, advertisers, advocacy groups, significantly shape what can be shown on screen. It underscored the uneasy partnership between artistic vision and commercial demands, where bold storytelling can be stifled by concerns over brand image and audience sensibilities. This balancing act continues to influence TV production today. Moreover, the show's controversy presaged broader changes in how television addressed social issues. While the 1980s often favored sanitized narratives, cable networks and later streaming services would push boundaries further, allowing more nuanced and adult content to flourish. Little House's struggle highlighted the constraints imposed by the limited options of the time and the cautious nature of major broadcast networks. The incident served as a reminder of how evolving platforms and audiences have altered what stories can be told and how. Creators of family dramas based on the scene legacy developed their future writing methods. Writers and producers developed a better understanding about the hazards which exist when they decide to break away from established patterns. Many chose to explore difficult subjects more gradually or with greater sensitivity, seeking to avoid backlash while maintaining relevance. The storytelling trends which emerged from this safe method showed that beloved series need gradual changes because audience trust and network support depend on it. The audience developed different expectations because of this development. Viewers who grew up with shows like Little House developed strong attachments to their tone and values, making them less tolerant of sudden upheavals. The younger viewers, who belonged to different ethnic groups, wanted more authentic content, which showed their current life experiences. The conflict which emerged during this period showed the generational and cultural transformations which were happening throughout the nation. It forced networks to reconsider who they were programming for and how to balance competing interests within their viewer base. The industry used the incident to investigate content censorship policies and creative freedom practices through their investigation process. The influence that advertisers and advocacy groups held over television content started to draw more public attention because it revealed their role as narrative gatekeepers. Little House on the Prairie's controversial scene changed the course of a beloved series, revealing the challenges of balancing tradition with change on television. As we've seen, one moment can ripple through creative, cultural, and business worlds alike. If you found this story compelling, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into television history and the moments that shape the shows we love.